I'm very excited to be here with Robin Thomas. Now, I've done interviews with Robin before, and you're just always so much fun to spend time with. But we were talking a little bit because, we prep for these types of things. And it occurs to me that I don't even remember the first time we met. Like, I don't remember how you introduced yourself to me.
Oh,
Like, do you have a standard? Like, how do you introduce yourself to that new person who's like, who is this amazing woman?
I remember distinctly how we met.
Tell me.
I do. It was, we were at a I was invited to be a guest at a BNI meeting, and it was a huge meeting.
Where
I don't know how many people there. There must have been, I don't know, 60,
oh,
at least 60 people there,
at
way
least.
more, at least. Lots and lots and lots of guests. And I don't know if you were a guest there or
I was.
not.
I was
You were
visiting.
a
I was
guest
new
also.
here.
And we were all the way on either opposite ends of the room, opposite sides of the room. And I stand up and I gave my little thing. And I guess I was probably talking about my Living Well Connections community.
Oh.
Had something about community.
Community perks my ear.
Healthy living community. And then after, when everybody had said their 30-second thingy, after it was like the mingle time, we both just ran to each other like, I need to know you because I was interested in what you were doing. And it was just like, yes,
My people. That is so funny because I was talking to somebody else the other day about that meeting. And I remember thinking, like, I was very new to the community.
Yeah, you had just moved.
Yeah, like within weeks. Because I know when we moved from California, it was like, start networking, start networking, start networking. And one of the things that I discovered is that my line of work, kind of hard to refer with BNI and other types of,
Yeah.
The traditional networking groups where you give your 30-second speech and then people, it's not even the leads, right? They write, this is the person you need to meet.
Right.
Right. And it's lovely. It's lovely, lovely. But it was really difficult here. And then we ended up.
It was very difficult because it's very, I don't know, more banker, lawyer,
Right.
whatever, that circle, or the all contractor building houses and electricians and all that. And everywhere I went, it was always either,
Where do I fit?
or the third one is they were business coaches, and then they got everybody.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, who wants to be healthy?
Oh, my son's going to join our interview briefly.
Oh, that's fine.
He's trying to hide. I'm not as big as I used to be to block. But anyway, it's interesting because all of the networking and that's how we ended up in these kinds of places together because what was it, in 2018, we started the Holistic Chamber of Commerce that has turned into what we have now, which is, thank you for being here with us, everybody, yes. The Triangle Holistic Connection, where we really do want to network and we want to help each other grow our businesses, but we also want to, have those people around us who we know can support our clients, patients, and customers in ways that aren't part of the traditional mindset
right.
In those businesses.
We can be collaborative. I mean, we can work together. Plus, it's just nice to have other people who are like being well. I mean, not that people don't like being well. But,
I know it's tough.
But there's this, yes, there's the working on wellness. It is a work. It's a joyful work.
I'm going to butcher the quote, but there's somebody who says, we work so hard so that at some point we can enjoy our lives, but then we don't have a life left because we work ourselves to death. I know I butchered that.
No.
But, it is such an interesting thing. And having been in a BNI chapter, which I loved, like I loved it in California and, and even here I was in a chapter for a while, it was great, but there's a different focus. And if our business focus and our life focus is on, like you say, living well. And that means sometimes sacrificing the things that used to mean living well, like that champagne and those donuts. Those were my favorites.
Champagne and donuts.
Oh, yeah. But you can't, that's it. That's not the way that we live well within our community. And it's nice to have that kind of connection between all of our members. And so, I mean, you weren't always into the holistic element of what you do. Can you just share a little bit about what?
Yeah, I have a previous career. I've been in a previous career.
It was my old life.
It was actually definitely part of wellness.
Yeah.
Because I was in medical research at UNC. And I love doing the bench work. I like getting my hands dirty and doing this stuff. Here at home, I garden and I like getting my hands dirty. And I was getting my hands dirty. And so I was actually, doing the lab bench stuff.
Lab bench stuff. But I mean, can you tell for people who haven't known of the extent of your brilliance? Brilliant. There's my word.
Well, yeah, I can go there.
I mean, you were doing high level stuff with like lasers and I mean,
so I was working very briefly. I started my career dipping seawater and collecting microorganisms out of seawater to eat oil. So,
eat oil, like from
naturally, some microorganisms actually naturally can process little bits of oil. So you have an oil slick, so we were trying to develop that. And I went from that to looking at brown lung disease, which is like microorganisms. See, I was a microbiologist. So microorganisms on cotton fields and that fly around in cotton mills and cause brown lung disease. And then I got out of that. And when the lasers came apart, I was looking, we were helping sickle cell patients. We were looking at therapies for sickle cell patients that kept their cells from sickling as much. We could never keep them from getting, they were always a bit misshapen, but when they really sickle, that's when it's very, very painful and they have a crisis. And so the idea was really to keep them from going into crisis mode. And we found something that worked well, but we had to, in order to do that, we had to look at the membrane of the red blood cell, figure out how to do that, and so I helped build a piece of equipment that would spin it around in a viscous solution, and then we had a laser shining on it that would measure the flexibility of the membrane as it was being spun around, and the solution was so viscous, it was like pulling it, like dragging it, stretching it.
That's amazing. Like,
it was pretty fun.
So cool. I could geek out with you on all of these things.
Yeah.
Like, that is so cool. And so why would you leave a career like that?
Well, and then I went on to what I really liked, but it was also having some family issues, a very ill son.
Right. And
but I did go on into a laboratory. The last, I think 10 years, I was in a laboratory where we were looking at inflammation and autoimmune disease and they were looking at up and down regulation of RNA. And you know what RNA is?
I do. Does everybody else in the audience know?
RNA. Well, RNA is the genetic component we have that reacts to our environment. It reacts to foods we eat. It reacts to when we exercise. It reacts to whatever is happening in our bodies. The RNA is helping form proteins.
I'd like to amend my answer. No, I did not know what RNA was.
You don't know that.
I mean, no, not the way you just described it. So thank you. Like, that's okay.
So there's the DNA that's pretty,
right.
And then the RNA kind of translates and talks. It's like a little translator.
You just made science easy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's fascinating. We were trying to figure out how to change and keeping people from going into painful periods of their life. So to keep them from going into flares.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody out there has a family member or anyone with an autoimmune disease that has flares, has been through flares
anymore. But yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But I've changed a lot of what I do.
Changed a lot of things. So what you have changed with lifestyle habits are changing that RNA so it's not putting out all those inflammatory cytokines as much.
So because of my champagne and donuts, I was getting squares.
Probably.
Because it's the sugars, right? That's a big
Well,
that's
that's
not
one
just
thing.
sugars.
That's one thing. I mean, there's many reasons, and
We're
and
not
then
going to
some are
villainize
very
sugar today.
individual. We'll get that's a lot, on the general level, is our body works better under certain conditions. We work better without toxins.
Why does that
Makes
seem like it
sense.
makes so much sense?
Yeah, we do. We work better, and actually, I mean, people can consider some of the foods that we eat regularly, or some people eat regularly, are pretty toxic. I mean, some even have neurotoxins in them,
Like in them.
as when the part of the food additives act as neurotoxins.
And like the only thing that I think of is like that blowfish, sushi blowfish, right? Where if you don't take out the certain part of it, you can die, right? That to me is a toxic food or a potentially toxic
Yeah.
food.
But there's things that are actually delicious and yummy and certified safe, you know. I mean, the grocery store does not sell toxins on purpose.
Right.
But there's things in there in small amounts. But if you're eating a lot of it,
those amounts aren't so small.
yeah, and the thing is, and what it doesn't kill you, but it can make your life more miserable with a increasing inflammation.
So it's so interesting, and this just pops into my head because when I first got really sick, I was 19, and I went to a doctor who said, don't drink any soda, which I never really drank anyway. He was like, filter all of your water through a coffee pot because you need cleaner water, or boiled. It needed to be boiled in some way. I don't know what, I had all of these protocols, but he never told me to like change he told me not to eat spicy food.
That's interesting.
But, and again, this was, I mean, I don't want to say how old I am, but it was not like yesterday, right?
Research has moved along. You know what research is.
Wait, it's not 20 plus years. Yeah, 20 plus. Yes, I do know.
Doing it over and over and over and over and over. Research.
Oh, research.
And again, and again, and again. And they learn new things. I mean, scientists learn new things.
Well, I just always find it interesting because, we talk about food, we talk about supplements, we talk about movement, we talk about sleep and water.
Yeah.
And there are so many things that people can do to attempt to detox themselves. And then it's going to be 4th of July, right? It's going to be your birthday. It's going to be a time that we celebrate. So what do we do to celebrate? And I wonder if maybe we can spend a couple of moments here just talking about how do you celebrate without the toxic foods? Like, how do you keep yourself healthy in times of celebration? Is that an okay way to go with this? Can we do that?
Well, kind of. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, one of the selfish reasons I wanted to have my community, Living Well Connections. Because I wanted to have parties and not it end up being alcohol and chips and dip parties.
Oh.
Or alcohol and really crappy food parties.
Well, and this is such an interesting thing because I work with a lot of people who are going through transitions with their lifestyle because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? But the detox process is so hard. And one of the things, so never mind the emotional stuff that happens as you're detoxing all of this, but then when you make the decision and you're okay with it, now we're isolated because we can't go to parties with our friends because we'll be tempted to eat the chips, to eat, to drink the beer or have the cake, whatever it is. For me, it was kids' birthday parties. All the kids' birthday parties. And we had to chaperone the kids' birthday parties, and there was always pizza and cake, and I had no willpower at all. So I love
the sad thing, that was really sad for my son because pizza and cake is probably the worst thing he can eat. He actually has he has a couple of autoimmune diseases, and pizza and cake are the worst things that somebody could give him, and that they always have pizza. And
so easy, right?
So that was tough being the kid, and he didn't want to have willpower, It's like
and neither did I as an adult. Like I can suffer.
So I have, when I can, I have parties and potluck parties and this wonderful group of people, and everybody brings such great food and it's loads of fun
and healthy.
And you can have a lot of fun. And it's not, we're not just having vegetable platters. Right. It's not just full of that. It's full of lots of fun food.
Yeah. Well, and
So
that's such a fun thing to recognize too.
yeah,
I tend to watch a lot of cooking shows, and not that I cook, but like it's interesting to see how many gourmet meals don't have gluten, don't have dairy, don't have soy, and they look amazing.
and they
And they
taste
get
amazing.
judged. What's that?
And they taste
And they
amazing.
taste amazing. Right. And it's just so shocking because we think we're limiting ourselves. And you should have seen me crying in the grocery stores when I went on my first elimination diet. I literally was escorted out twice by people that are like, Miss, you can't stand in here crying. Like, but everything I looked at had a soy lecithin or it had a dairy in it or it had something. And it was like, I'm going to shrivel up and die now until I learned. Anyway,
Yeah.
back then I learned to cook a little. And I was like, at the time I ate a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables and that was it.
Yeah. And that's what happened with my son. I know that he was, I mean, he was told to eat packaged crackers because he is type 1 diabetes, and they taught him how to carb count. And he'd go off to diabetes camp, and they're teaching him how to carb count, and they're having all this junk food at diabetes camp, but it was junk food that had a box on it that told you how many carbs was in there. And that's how they taught the kids, which really blew my mind.
Yeah.
When we first came home after the visit to the functional neurologist, who said no more of this food, my poor son had a major withdrawal. And I mean, he would stand at the pantry, open the pantry, because I went and cleaned out my pantry.
Yeah.
And he'd stand at the pantry and,
My
and he'd cry, there is nothing here to eat. There's nothing in the house. Now he has no issues whatsoever. He finds all kinds of foods to eat, and it's not a problem. He's still, like, and the special treats. I mean, sometimes it's worth it to go ahead and eat the special treat. It depends on how bad you're going to feel afterwards. If it's, I mean,
Well, it's like you kind of have to know what your reaction is. Like I
yeah,
know for me, when I have soy, I break out. And but if I'm at a Thai restaurant and they're going to deep fry some soy for me, like I might suffer the breakout for that. Other things though, like donuts give me heartburn.
yeah.
The thought of a donut gives me heartburn. That is not, to me, it's not worth it. So, but we have to know which
So
one.
you have to know what, and that's why I always have people journaling for a while to know. Okay, so how do you feel after this meal? Well, if you feel like total crap, well, how often do you want to feel like total crap? I mean, it could be a way of people, do they want a hangover or not? But this is, some people can be hangover after eating one donut.
Right. Well, and then
They
it becomes
feel that bad.
it's like
And
an
they
overload.
didn't overload things. They ate one donut. So you have to know your own body.
Right. And that's always the thing, because I know the first time I did the elimination diet, and it was like, now it's time for reintroduction. And I was like, good, I can bring everything back. Start over.
Yeah.
So all of this cool stuff, I think we got a little off track because we
started talking about food.
And it is after lunch. I hope that you're well fed.
Yes, I am well fed.
I mean, this becomes a big part of your life and your business. And you started to say something about your clients and how you have them journal. Like, what do you do with your clients? How do you help them?
Well, I help them in many facets, but I am part of. 16 years ago, I did start this journey by aligning with a business that was already existing, called USANA Health Sciences. And I said I was a scientist. I loved it because the founder of USANA has a double PhD, immunology, microbiology, and I was a microbiologist. It was kind of like,
Heaven.
I know this guy. I mean, I knew who this guy was. I knew him from the, papers he wrote. He was very, very well known in nutrition because he was a virologist and he had to keep the human cells healthy.
So cool.
Yeah. And he did it so well that all the virologists around was like, okay, so what's your formula? What's your nutrient formula? And he developed that by really studying and learning all the different pathways.
That doesn't sound at all easy.
No. And so the synergy, the balance is so very important. I mean, when you walk into a pharmacy or a grocery store or whatever, health food store, and you see all these dang supplements, and you start taking, well, somebody said this I need, and someone has said this I need, and you start taking things off, and you put them all together, they don't work well together because they're not meant to work well together, and they're in certain doses that not necessarily you need. Some things you need just a tiny bit. Some things you need more.
Are you trying to tell me that I don't actually need 200% of my daily recommended values of manganese, perhaps?
And that's the key point, because what happens is people jump on one thing. Oh, well, B vitamins are good, therefore they're going to do lots and lots of B vitamins. And you want that balance. They work together in our body. So some are coenzymes of others. They do. There's a relationship going on there, and they talk to each other.
Now, when they talk to each other, you've brought up a concept that I am so not very familiar with, and I know it's much bigger than I'm about to ask, but is that talking to each other what cell signaling is?
Yeah.
Yay!
And there's just this, and I'm not going to go into this today, but there's different forms. There's different forms of cell signaling. There's different types of cell signaling. I mean, some of it, way back, I learned early on, of course, my son being type 1 diabetic, that, okay, insulin was needed, insulin is needed for the cell to be able to utilize glucose.
Okay.
Okay, so it's sitting there. So if you don't have the insulin key, and this is really, they've known this one a long time. If you don't have the insulin key to unlock the glucose pathway, whatever.
Keep it simple for me. Right.
Huh?
I said, keep it simple for me.
Yeah. If you don't have the key to unlock the cell, they can't do anything. So the sugar's just going around and around in your bloodstream. And that's why people have high sugar in their bloodstream, because their cells can't take it in. That's a very simplified version.
I appreciate you simplifying it for me.
But there's other things. There's lots of other pathways that happen in our body. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those maps. If you ever go to any kind of functional medicine thing, did that bounce off your head? That's what came out.
It's going to be disseminated. This is my son, Joshua.
Hi, Joshua.
Sorry about that, everyone.
No, that happened. That's hilarious.
I'm going to get hit by an ice cream in a minute, but go ahead.
There's something called the silent scream you can do. Yes, that's it. So I don't even know where I was, but but there's lots of, it's like a spaghetti, it's not a spaghetti, because they're just drawing it and outlining it. And, it works very naturally in our body. And it doesn't look like, it doesn't have the little strings going from one to the next and all, but it's just all happening at the same time.
It's amazing how complicated our systems are. And we, mere humans, are trying to understand it and trying to draw it out. Have you seen those old medical texts that have the hand drawings of everything? Like, it's amazing what our curiosity can lead us to. And we've gotten to a place that, it's led us both to pathways towards health as well as pathways towards ease, right? Uh-huh. And I don't know.
So it's just fascinating. It is fascinating. And scientists got very interested in, you get the basic line. You want to stop people having so much pain. Or mitochondria are the basis of, what a mitochondria is?
Please, I'm sure I'm wrong. Tell me. They're cells, right?
Well, they're inside the cell. They're organelle inside each cell.
Right.
That is where ATP.
It's a powerhouse, right?
That's the powerhouse.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as we get older, even if they're making a new cell, the mitochondria aren't doing so hot. They're not as efficient.
Okay.
They don't even make them as efficient because we've been exposed to toxins, and we've been, we're eating crap, and we're sorry about that word. All these things we've been doing that kind of helps the aging process move along a little quicker, because the mitochondria they're not being efficient, and they're actually, when they're not efficient, they're putting off a lot more of free radicals, which cause inflammation also.
I took a note on that. Okay,
we'll
come back to that. Because free radicals, that's That's always the big thing, right? And the marketing pushes, right? Oh, drink this juice.
Well, yeah, I know. It's like you're supposed to be antioxidant chocolate or drink this particular juice or do this whatever particular. That's a one thing.
Well,
But
and it'll get rid of all of your free radicals, and it will boost you with antioxidants. And it's like you talked
there's
about
an awful lot you have to do an awful lot, you know, and even supplements, they used to say, oh, we react with even more free radicals than others, or we have more antioxidants than others. This is the most antioxidants you can get. Well, that's all from what you're eating, and that's all external. But our body has an interesting way about it that uses cell signaling and can be plant nutrients. It can also be back when we were, well, not Neanderthals, but, back when, back in the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
And we didn't eat for a while. I mean, this is one of the reasons why intermittent fasting or fasting has become so popular now, because people are learning that if there's a calorie restriction, it turns on a certain pathway. But also there's some specific plant nutrients, phytonutrients in different ratios that work well for this too. So you don't really have to fast for 3 days. I mean, people still are doing it for various reasons, but that turns on a pathway that actually helps that RNA form a protein, an enzyme, which eats up free radicals. It reacts, so it gets rid of those.
There's just so much knowledge that you have about all this. I know, and because I don't have a timer on my thing because now it just says recording, so I'm sure we've gone over our 10 minutes.
I know we've gone long, and I'm excited because I'm looking into this even more. I mean, I have just curiosity, and one of the things I love to do is translate
for people like me,
for people like you. Because I actually have to be careful, because sometimes if I talk, I start seeing the eyes gloss over. I said, okay, so I need you a reminder of like, let's bring it down, Robin.
Just think Liz is in the audience going, what?
I love it. And so that's one of the things I love to do. I do this online. I love to share information. I love to teach. So I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone and do more videos and make them short, because people have the attention span of a mosquito now.
I think it's hard for people to sit online. I have found myself, like, I exercise every morning with YouTube videos because I like the differentiated ones, but I can't even do that. Like, I have to do that on a faster speed. And I know I'm not the only one. It's like, can we just move on with this? So for anybody who's watching this outside of the time of COVID, we're still within it now, right? So yeah, being respectful of people who are our viewers, I think that's great.
Yeah. We just are all busy people, and I think little bits of it, and sometimes I think just getting a little bit of information and being able to understand it and remember it is better than getting an hour of information. I mean, I think there's a reason why a college class is 50 minutes and not an hour long. Because I think usually by the last 15 minutes, everybody's kind of going like,
and it depends on the class too. But yeah. I agree. And that's the live stuff. It's, well, you and I can talk more about this this screen overwhelm another time, but I want to sign this video off with a huge thank you. For sharing, like, there were like 6 different things that we talked about today that I learned in small bites. No, seriously, thank you. That was wonderful. And I love that you came and joined our Triangle Holistic Connection, and that you've been so open with Living Well Connections for so long. Like, there's such a beautiful community there. So for anybody who's watching, if you have not yet experienced Living Well Connections, you can go to, it's livingwellconnections.com, right?
.info. Yeah, and that will just lead you to to an invitation to join the community.
There is no better community.
And it is not, and I love, because where communities are different, Triangle Holistic Connection is for practitioners. Living Well Connections is for anybody with a mindset and the curiosity and wanting to learn and wanting to be healthy and wanting to be supportive.
and wanting to party with delicious food and
And to party with delicious food.
awesome people. Robin Thomas, thank you so much. You can always find information about Robin at robinthomas.biz. I'm just so grateful to have you in my life, Robin, and also in this interview. So thank you so much.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Always is fun.
I know, we have so much
Yes.
fun.
Yes. And definitely join us here on Triangle Holistic Connection. It's a fantastic community too.
And we've got so many great things on the horizon. So I'm
Yeah.
so excited. Robin, thank you. If you were here, I'd hug you. Masks on.
Virtual hug.
Virtual hugs. And I guess we'll stop our recording now.